It's a done deal. A consensus chairmanship candidate has emerged ahead of the National Convention of Nigeria's major opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, after the North reached a resolution. He is Iyorchia Ayu, a former president of the Senate in the aborted Third Republic. Arise political editor Samna Sambo reports.
Ranking members of the Northern Caucus of the People's Democratic Party trooping out after a marathon meeting in Abuja. After intense horse trading following negotiations and counter-negotiations, two contestants, Ibrahim Shema from the Northwest, who is also a former governor of Katsina State, and Abdul Ningi from the Northeast, who is also a non-serving senator from Bauchi State, dropped their ambitions in favor of Dr. Iyorchia Ayu, a former president of the Senate in the aborted Third Republic, who is from the North Central Geopolitical Zone.
Distinguished Senator Iyorchia Ayu has emerged as the consensus candidate of the North. And with this, we are fully prepared, we are ready. We will be talking to our colleagues in other parts of the country, particularly the South, that they see reason for this consensus candidate and give us support during the 30th and 31st convention of PDP. All of them were eminently qualified, but through discussion, through reconciliation, we have emerged with a consensus list that was endorsed by the candidate themselves. There was no election and there was no selection.
The position of the national chairman was given to North Central by the neck. And first, the North endorsed Senator Ayu to be our national chairman, and this will unite our party, and with the qualities of Senator Ayu, I think we are progressing and the party will be more united.
The leaders explained that the consensus arrangement is to ensure that the PDP remains stronger and united, hence the need for contestants to sacrifice their personal ambitions. Other positions zoned to the north were also distributed using the consensus option. Dr. Iyorchia Ayu says he is set to ensure a rebirth in the PDP so as to win back the presidency in 2023 and return the party to its previous winning ways.
It is my singular honor to accept the responsibility which has been put on my shoulders from the north. I believe at the end of the day, it will not only be the North, but it will be all Nigerians. The PDP will be back to its winning ways. We'll work tirelessly after the convention to rebuild the party, to take over power, to rebuild the country.
Leaders of the PDP in the North Central, while presenting a united front, are full of commendation for other zones in the North that ceded the chairmanship to them through a consensus.
This is our incoming chairman as far as the PDP is concerned. Our chairman endorsed by the entire North, and also to zone the two other positions that were allocated to the North Central. And we also unanimously agreed that the position of National Legal Advisor should go to Kwara State, and the position of Deputy National Auditor should go to the Federal Capital Territory. And all this we unanimously accepted because we believe that that is the best approach to keep us together, to keep us united as we march towards victory in 2023.
we have put ourselves together, and by the special grace of God, we are positioning and repositioning ourselves to win elections in 2023. So you cannot finish doing everything. Life in itself is progress, work in progress. So I think that as life is work in progress, party is work in progress, everything we're doing is work in progress. We'll work to ensure that we have victory in 2023.
I will consult members of the party wisely. We'll come out with a program of action. We'll implement that program. It will be very democratic. It will bring back even those who had left the party. At the end of the day, Nigerians will realize what they missed. Nigerians will vote for the PDP. We are coming back. The PDP is back. And by the time we come together, as demonstrated today, by the unity of the party in not just the North Central Zone, but the whole of Northern Nigeria, I believe Nigerians will soon realize that the real party, the biggest party in Africa, the party that will unite and develop this country is back, and they will vote us back.
Senator Yochia Ayu's chairmanship is now on full course and is set to be ratified at the Special National Convention of the PDP, slated for Abuja on 30th and 31st of October. Somna Sambu, Arise News.
Well, I'm sure you want to commend the PDP for achieving this consensus candidate, and it is a huge achievement because other political heavy hitters had to step down so that he could emerge, and that's no mean feat given all the egos and all the plans involved. So this is looking good for the PDP at this point. But yeah, take it away, Dr. Abati.
Well, okay, the people that stepped down to allow the consensus to take place. Former Governor of Katsina State, Ibrahim Shema, and Senator Abdul Ningi, representing Bauchi State previously in the National Assembly. Now, I think the game is on, the 2023 game. There was a lot of anxiety about how, the People's Democratic Party will resolve, all that controversy and politics about who will be the next chairman of the party. And what the party has done here is to make a very deft move. What the party has done by opting for consensus is to give the impression that the People's Democratic Party is serious about 2023 and that there is no rancor. And it was good to see that Dr. Yochia Ayu was surrounded by all the governors, really, giving some kind of, direct physical representation of the consensus that we're talking about. Now, but what they've done, why it is very smart, is that the game is actually being thrown open. They've not given the other parties the advantage of knowing ahead of time where the presidential candidate of the PDP at this point will come from. Because what they've done, although they're talking about a northern consensus candidate, no, it's a minority. It's TV from Boko, that's Dr. Yochia Ayu. So they've given the chairmanship of the party to the middle belt. We have to be specific because people from the middle belt sometimes run away from the label of the North Central. What it means, technically, is that the presidential candidate of the PDP can now come from either the North or the South. And that's why I said the game is quite open. Beyond that, I think that Dr. Yochia Ayu is a good choice. PhD sociology, former teacher of sociology, at the University of Jos, former editorial board member at the Daily Times, former Senate President in the Third Republic, 1992 to 1993, former Minister of Education under the Abacha administration in 1994, former Minister of Internal Affairs under the Obasanjo administration, although the Obasanjo administration turned him adrift and he ended up joining the Action Congress. And then now he's back to, as politicians will say, back home in the PDP, and he's been given this major responsibility. What are the tasks ahead of him? He himself alluded to one or two of those tasks, but the key task will be for him to build bridges and unify the party, reposition the PDP, re-engineer the PDP, put the PDP in a position, in which he can provide a very strong opposition and competition, for the ruling All Progressives Congress. He has a reputation for being very courageous, for being very principled, and I think that all of that, should put him in a good stead as he takes on this new assignment. Another thing that Dr. Ayu may want to reconsider or would want to look at is the Bala Mohammed report. After the 2015 general elections and the 2019 general elections, the PDP embarked on the task of trying to find out why the PDP failed. Why is it that the most dominant political party in Africa, which was a phrase that he used, why is it suddenly a party in opposition? The party may well, need to take a look at that particular report and try to figure out what lessons can be learned. Finally, he's not the first person from the Middle Belt to take on the chairmanship of the People's Democratic Party. We had Baraje, I think, Mr. Baraje from Kwara. We have Barnabas Gemade. Before Gemade, we had Audu Ogbe, and we also had, who was that? Solomon La, the first founding father of the party, was also from that particular zone. So what the PDP has done, I think, is interesting, and it will be nice to watch what happens when the party holds its convention and when it comes up with a presidential candidate. We hope, we expect that the presidential game in 2023 will be very robust and that all the parties, will try to do their best to ensure that what they offer Nigerians is an opportunity for Nigerians to choose from strictly among the best. No political abracadabra, no, Division 3 characters should be presented. I think it will be part of our responsibility as civil society to continue, to educate Nigerians about informed choice and the need to ensure that only the best material possible leads Nigeria going forward in 2023.
So now that PDP has their consensus northern candidate, is it really a done deal? What does the South have to say about it? Do you think that it will be ratified across the board?
Well,
can that be assumed?
What has happened within the party is that it's not just a northern consensus candidate. It's a consensus, from within the party, from bottom up.
Right.
So it will be interesting to see where the game will come from. Now it's very clear. The presidential candidate of the PDP is not likely to come from the North Central or the Middle Belt. But the PDP has addressed the fears, the concerns of that section of the party. Look at how they've zoned the national auditorship and the national legal advisor. All of this concentrated around the Northern Central zone. So the next game will be, where would the other positions go and who will emerge as the presidential candidates. As I said, I don't expect any rancor over Dr. Yacha Ayu's emergence. And in any case, he's a tested politician. And he has the head, he has the mental, the intellectual heft. That's the word I'm looking for.
Good to know.
To provide the necessary leadership.
Well, that's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson, Adesua Morwan, and Aaron Akerjala to give us updates on global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here at Arise News. Now we're going to Michael Wilson in London for global business updates. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Morning. Positive end to the week, really, given the stellar results coming out from the banking sector on Wall Street yesterday. Much improved jobs figures as well from the United States. The weekly initial jobless claims fell by much less than expected, and core PPI in the United States rose less than expected. I'll come on to that, though. So that positive sentiment echoed basically across Asia with varying degrees. Nikkei up 1.5%, Kospi about 1%. Shanghai, though, a bit of more cautious note from China. Australian markets, though, doing extremely well after overnight rallies. And they also received a boost that New South Wales is going to scrap all quarantine requirements for vaccinated incoming international travellers from November the 1st. So this kind of trend of economies and countries sort of opening up after COVID is extending. Asia's most important data actually comes out on Monday. Q3 GDP from China. Soft data will unnerve the markets and cast doubts about China's recovery. And from 13 major banks, 10 of them, apparently, according to a survey out this morning, have reduced their forecast for China's economic growth, down about 0.3 percentage points. According to one China consumer goods maker, this is Hisense. The chip market could last for another 2 to 3 years. The president of Hisense, which is China's largest TV and household goods makers, you may not have heard of them. I bought things in Africa from them. Currently, around 40% of Hisense's stuff goes overseas. They want to make that 50%, but they're still worried about this chip shortage. Microsoft is shutting down its LinkedIn operation in China. It faces harsh internet censorship in the country. It will launch a China-specific product of LinkedIn this year for job searching, but it won't have social media features as LinkedIn often does, or does elsewhere in the world. As far as the US is concerned, let's recap that into positive territory yesterday, boosted, as I said, by those very, very strong banking reports out yesterday. Nasdaq up 1.75%, Dow Jones 1.5% up. Futures actually doing quite well. And of course, the Democrat-controlled House of Representatives voted along party lines to pass the stopgap $480 billion hike debt ceiling to keep government actually in, and Biden signed that off yesterday. Without that increase, of course, there would have been a collapse and the government would have been incapable of securing and servicing loans after October the 18th. That date, that would have reverberated around the world as an economic catastrophe. Anyway, that looks like it's been averted. More flack for the UK about Brexit from the French. This is the UK finance minister saying that they're suffering similar kind of supply problems as the United Kingdom is doing at the moment. But the fact that being a very member of a very important bloc, there is Bruno Le Maire, said that the fact that we're a member of a very important economic bloc helps us facing these bottlenecks. UK retailers, as you know, have been suffering because of them. And we've had a comment from the Deputy Governor of the Bank of England, John Cunliffe, who was talking yesterday. He was warning about cryptocurrencies and a possible catastrophe about that. He likened the rate of growth of the crypto asset market to $2.3 trillion today, a bit like the subprime mortgage market in 2008. And we all know what happened there. I'm not sure there are similarities, but anyway, he's saying that there are, and he's warning about cryptos before we get regulation about them. We've known that the Bank of England is looking for its own cryptocurrency, not Bitcoin, but its own government-issued cryptocurrency, as a lot of central banks are doing as well. We're seeing cheaper travel tests to start on the 24th of October. In other words, lateral flow tests, instead of the more expensive PCR ones, will come in to place on the 24th of October. That happens to chime in with half-term holidays actually coming back from abroad. So that's hope that will increase and bolster up people's confidence in the travel industry. Believe that when I see it. Oil prices, they're holding up actually. Goldman Sachs is saying that these oil prices are going to be higher for much longer, if you believe what Goldman Sachs says. They're one of the many forecasters around the world. The support for the oil price has been helped by OPEC actually saying overnight that it will not be drawn into ramping up production given the rise in gas prices. So that's helping. Then gold is testing an important resistance level. It tested $1,800 an ounce. It's now edging to $1,795 in post-Asia trade coming into US trade, but still a measure of the world's nervousness possibly. Gold bugs will be delighted by that, no doubt, but still it didn't make it above 1,800 for very long. Back to you.
Well, Michael, thank you for that. But very quickly, let's start with the UK and the European Union and Brexit. 5 states within the European Union, led by Germany, France, I think the Netherlands, Italy and Spain are part of it. They're asking for the declaration of a trade war with the United Kingdom. If the United Kingdom goes ahead with its threat, as expressed on Tuesday by Lord David Frost, to suspend, cancel the protocols on Northern Ireland. And that threat of a trade war will include increased tariffs on exports from the UK. It will include all kinds of restrictions against the United Kingdom, even the suspension itself, of the agreement. Article 16. Is the United Kingdom going to invoke Article 16 of the Brexit deal with regard to trade? Or are we just dealing with your favorite phenomenon, what you call showboating? And then quickly, before now, Business Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng and the Transport Secretary Grant Shapps, they were both saying, the crisis with HGV drivers and the request for temporary immigration visa waivers and all of that would not cause any problem, and that the Road Haulage Association should look within in England. But that didn't solve the problem. Now here we are. We hear that 800 butchers from European countries will be brought in to help before Christmas to make sure that we don't have a dull Christmas. And we also hear that there are plans to provide immigration visas for about 5,000 workers from Europe. Now, wasn't this foreseeable? At the time that, the secretaries were boasting that there were enough workers in the UK, couldn't they have seen that this would be the situation in which they will find themselves? However, the Road Haulage Association is now complaining about long-term effect of the British losing jobs, whereas, are they less concerned about the situation in the UK at the moment with regard to supplies?
Right, let's deal with the UK, the EU first of all. Yes, it's showboating. Of course it is. I would expect them to say exactly that kind of thing. The reality is that all economies need each other in an equal way. Germany wants to export, France wants to export, Italy wants tourists in, Spain wants tourists in. There are all sorts of ways of doing these kind of things. So a lot of showboating going on, of course. Not saying the threats aren't real. Of course they are. Not saying they're not worrying. Of course they are. Not saying that Brexit is the growing pains are extraordinary right now. Of course they are. One would expect this kind of thing. I pay attention to it and then I read another story, to be honest. I think these trade wars are much ado about nothing. I don't think they are between the United States, Australia and China and the EU as blocks and between the UK. But I think as far as the EU is concerned, this is showboating. And remember that these countries are facing either enormous financial difficulties right now within the EU. Italy, first of all, we haven't heard a great deal about that. We know that Germany is, we know that France is, and we know that Macron is coming up for re-election in May next year. So all these political things actually going on. Yes, a lot of showboating. As far as the HGV drivers is concerned, what the government's doing, for rightly or wrongly, is saying, look, we're not going to give assistance. What we'll do is we'll bend the rules slightly. And there's another one which has been bent this morning about cabotage, which is the ability of foreign drivers to do more than 2 journeys within the UK to help out the haulage industry. No question that the haulage industry needs overhauling. I think it'll probably get that as well. But you've got a prime minister who is saying that what he wants to do is concentrate on a move to a highly skilled, highly paid economy, which of course doesn't include HGV drivers as we speak. That crisis is going to continue. I've said in the past, and I know you think that I'm being Scroogish about this, that it's not about Christmas. Well, it is. Christmas is a totemic thing for politicians as well. Nobody likes to see empty shelves at Christmas because that's when the voters like to treat themselves. That's what all this is about. In terms of long-term effects, I'm with the Road Haulage Association on this. It needs thoroughly overhauling, as do most of these supply chain jobs. Yes, of course they do.
What do you make of what's been called Striketober, with 100,000 US workers threatening to go on strike? Already, you've reported on this show about the record numbers of vacancies, job vacancies. What do you think Joe Biden is going to do to address this, since he describes himself as the most pro-union president of America? What kind of intervention should occur here?
I have no idea what Joe Biden's going to do. What I think will come to his rescue is the infrastructure plan that he's trying to push through at the moment. Remember, they just signed on the debt ceiling being raised. There are a long way to go as far as that infrastructure plan is concerned. By infrastructure plan, of course, what I mean is lots of state-sponsored building, and I would have thought that will probably soak up quite a few jobs in the United States. I think that the United States workers are suffering from exactly the same as workers in this country are. They've been on furlough, they've been paid for being at home, they've got all sorts of childcare problems apart from anything else, which are very, very important indeed. I don't think you can just suddenly say, well, you're on holiday now, you can't come into work, you've got to look after the kids, and then suddenly say, oh, by the way, come back to work tomorrow. It doesn't happen like that. So I think a societal change is happening, but I think the infrastructure plan, if you really, that's my thought, will actually suck up a lot of these job vacancies. I don't know whether Joe Biden's got a plan apart from that. I would have thought the natural laws of demand and supply would take care of it to a small extent. What will happen in the longer term, I do not know.
Right, and also on that story about LinkedIn in China, which obviously tried to hang on for as long as they could, clearly. Is it linked to this other story that you shared about the Chinese government tightening regulations on tech companies, education companies for the next foreseeable future? It's all linked?
Absolutely. I mean, it isn't said to be linked. Of course it's linked. Yes, it must be. It must be linked in the same way that Microsoft is very, very worried about crackdown on everything. China, I mean, the great game in China now, or outside China rather, is to work out which is the next sector that they're going to actually regulate very, very strongly, as they've done with big tech. Yeah, I think it's absolutely linked, yeah.
The next few years, not the next foreseeable future. Never mind. Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Well, Michael Wilson, I would have loved to ask you about the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson. With all that is happening in the UK, he's still quite happy somewhere, painting. And
he's back now, reportedly.
Is he back?
Yeah, they say he's back in London.
Is he back? Okay. Maybe we lost connection there, but thank you very much, Michael Wilson. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adesua Monroan is here with us. Hello, Adesua. Good morning. Thank God it's Friday.
Hello, Dr. Abati. Good to be here. Good morning, Tundu.
Morning.
And we shall miss Rufai this morning. Morning. Well, the world is inching towards 240 million coronavirus cases since it was first reported from Wuhan City in China, with almost 4.9 million deaths so far. Vaccines, we know, are not accessible by the vast majority of people outside of the very wealthy nations. But even when they are available in some of those wealthy nations, we are beginning to see that vaccination uptake is stalling, and governments are now trying to enforce mandates, issue vaccine passports, and consider booster shots. So far, 6.57 billion doses of vaccines against coronavirus have now been administered globally. And just to add that the US FDA panel of experts in the last 24 hours has now recommended a lower dose of Moderna as a booster shot for some of the population. That consideration is not binding. We still need to get the FDA to resolve that, and perhaps we'll see if they have a take on Johnson & Johnson. A meeting is expected today if Johnson & Johnson will also be getting approval for booster shots in the US. Well, here in Nigeria, no data released by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, the NCDC, which is monitoring the movement of the pandemic in Nigeria. In the last 24 hours, no new data was released. I do not know why this is so. It is unclear why we don't have the data, but hopefully the next time we're here to look at the update from the pandemic, we'll get data from the agency. But we did get a briefing from the vaccination agency in Nigeria. The head of the agency, Dr. Faisal Shuaib, revealed that a study conducted in six states in Nigeria to monitor the safety of COVID vaccines administered has shown that there are no adverse effects that require hospitalization from taking those vaccines. According to him, the 6 states are Anambra, Borno, Edo, Katsina, Lagos, and Plateau. The study was led by Akin Oshibogun, who is a professor of community medicine at the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Here are some of the details from that study. It shows that the commonest reported symptoms for anybody who has taken a vaccine knows this. Among those vaccinated 18 and above were tenderness at the injection site. That was 20.9%. And then fever, 20.3%. Most of the reported symptoms, about 55.5%, occurred within the first 3 days of vaccination. However, some 42.2% of people who were vaccinated do not recall when exactly they started feeling their symptoms. The study also said that adverse effects following immunization were reported in the older age brackets. 61.5% of those who are older than 60 years old reported more symptoms than those who are 18 to 24 years old. Just some 34.9% of the younger population reported symptoms. Those with pre-existing morbidities were also observed to have higher rates of reported symptoms. So those who were initially ill or have some sort of medical condition had more reaction to the vaccines being administered. However, in total, most people with adverse effects do not need hospitalization. That's what Nigeria has found out from the study in this 6 states. But also at that briefing, Dr. Faisal Shuaibu revealed that Nigeria on the 7th of this month received more vaccines. He said over 434,000 of the Johnson & Johnson single dose arrived the country. He didn't say where exactly they came from. But he also said that there are plans to now set up mass vaccination sites at shopping malls, at markets, sports centers, academic institutions, and more in a drive to decentralize vaccination in Nigeria. Well, Dr. Abati, you posed a question yesterday when we talked about the vaccine mandate for federal workers. You were asking, do we have enough vaccines? Will people be subjected to some form of scrutiny just because they cannot access vaccine? Well, Dr. Faisal had a response to that question. He says there's enough vaccines for federal workers and the general population as more vaccines are expected in Nigeria. Well, away from Nigeria, actually, let's stay with Nigeria because just yesterday, Nigeria received more vaccines. This time around, 3.5 million doses of the Pfizer vaccines arrived here in the nation's capital at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, courtesy the United States government. And it was made known in a statement by the U.S. mission in Nigeria. It says that this latest arrival of vaccines brings the total of the vaccines donated to Nigeria by the U.S. to about 7.5 million doses. And finally, this morning, a study by the WHO shows that only 1 in 7 COVID-19 infections in Africa have been detected, meaning that the continent's estimated infection level may be 59 million people and not the current 8 million we are reporting at the moment. Dr. Mashitizo Moeti, who is the regional director of the WHO in Africa, says to change this situation and get more accurate numbers, which will help governments to actually respond to the virus accurately. The UN now plans to increase rapid diagnostic testing in 8 countries with the goal of testing 7 million people in the next year. These countries are Burundi, Cote d'Ivoire, Democratic Republic of Congo, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique, Republic of Congo, Senegal, as well as Zambia. It is expected to cost $1.8 million. Tundun, Dr. Abati.
Well, thank you, Adeswa. Where does one begin? You recall the beginning of this nightmare, Adeswa, when Tedros Ghebreyesus was chanting test, test, test. And we've had a lot less of that, which is why you've raised this story. It's really scary that so many COVID positive people are wandering around spreading this disease. But now that we have cheaper lateral flow tests, do you think that will be effective? And also, we actually have free testing, don't we, in public institutions? Do you think that more emphasis should be placed on it? Because that test, test, test message has really been rather lost since the advent of the COVID vaccines.
I totally agree with you. So it does come with its own intricacies and troubles, Tundun. So the lateral flow test, which is the rapid test which you can take in your house, they are very cheap, they are simple and easy to use. However, we have seen that in the past, there are usually problems with them with false positive or false negatives. They are not as accurate as the PCR test, which is seen as the gold standard if you're to detect the virus such as the COVID-19, the coronavirus, beg your pardon. So yes, it will ensure that more people are tested, but there's the question of, can we rely on those results when they do come out? Are they truly positive or are they negative? And I think that's why a lot of countries, even with restriction easing, do not rely on those tests for travelers. They still require you do the gold standard test, which is the PCR. And yes, if you do not know what you're dealing with, then you do not know how to react. So testing should still be the message by governments around the world, just as we back it up with vaccines. We need to know what we're dealing with, what virus is emerging, and you can only detect that by testing.
Okay, I think what was announced by the WHO Regional Office for Africa yesterday is very important. We've been told that Africa has about 8.4 million cases of COVID-19 currently, 214,000 deaths, but total 59 million cases have been reported. But when you compare the situation in Africa to, say, in the United States population is about a third of the population of Africa, which is about 1.3 billion. About 550 million tests in the United States alone. In the UK, about 250 million tests, just testing to track what is going on. So the fear is that in Africa, there may be a lot of people who are asymptomatic, and yet we do not know. The people who have been diagnosed as having COVID-19, they are persons who report themselves to former health centers or who go to hospitals. So this strategy, what the WHO Regional Office for Africa calls the ring strategy, is to bring the testing process, rapid antigen tests, which are much cheaper, to the level of the community. And it says 1 in 10,000 within a 100 meters radius, the same strategy that they adopted with regard to smallpox and also to Ebola. So you have those pilot countries that have been given $1.8 million each by the United States so that the WHO Regional Office in Africa will be able to do this. But beyond all of that, the big challenge that we face in Africa, even when you conduct these tests and you are able to track better beyond people who report themselves. What of vaccination? Many of these countries don't have enough, vaccines to go around. I think it's a question of leadership, both in terms of the solidarity at the international level and what individual countries are able to do for themselves. 1 in 7 countries, yes, fine. But if you look at it in terms of the fact that we have over 50 countries in Africa, maybe it's a strategy that will need to be extended further afield. As for Dr. Faisal Shaibu, talking yesterday about what Nigeria intends to do, what I find interesting there really is the objection not quite an objection. The Association of Senior Civil Servants of Nigeria and also the Nigerian Civil Service Union both say that yes, they agree with the plan by government to increase vaccination and to put a mandate out there against federal workers because it's useful in their view. But they disagree with the deadline of December 1 or the deadline of November 30, if you like. And the argument is that the federal government should consider the option of making that deadline more flexible and to put structures in place to ensure that people have access to the vaccines. So, that's the big thing for me. But Dr. Shaibu says, well, they are going to set up strategic centers and that private sector involvement will be there. It will still be free. And, at some point, even churches, even malls, supermarkets will be able to vaccinate people at no cost to the individuals. Finally, I think we should thank the United States for remaining committed to its promise of ensuring that the United States provides about 1.5 billion doses, right, for about 180 countries of the world. And in total, Nigeria has received slightly above 7 million doses from the United States alone, particularly through the COVAX facility. So that's an indication of President Biden walking the talk and saying that the United States will provide the necessary leadership. What is left is for us here in Nigeria to make the best use of those vaccine doses that are donated to us and to ensure that we mobilize the people to take the vaccine. Okay, thank you very much, Adesua.